everybody? Jeff Katz back with you. Hope you're doing okay as we return to our previously on, last time on Cheers, the greatest sitcom of all time, I should add, as we look here at the Swerve jackpot match between Stone and PW3, in which case, the super kick party results in both men passing out and a double pin. So obviously this was done, as we talked about last audio commentary, to twist things into where this will ultimately go, which is ultimately this matchup right here. As we go to the Crazy Joe Davola-inspired opening here. I want to give a shout-out. I forgot the guy's name. I've mentioned a couple times on here, I am a big fan of the Squared Circle Reddit. I've used that mostly along with Meltzer's site and the Cornet and Disco Inferno Conan shows to follow the business. As we see now, King, Dredd, and Shayna now all aligned here. This is going to be... We don't have faction names at this point. And now, wait a minute. But these guys were fired. They're not supposed to be here. And so we see now, obviously, very quickly, Stone, PW3, Liz, all back together. So they're basically... This is not hair versus hair. But basically, the team of Stone and PW3 with Liz sort of as a mechanism to bring them back together. They want revenge. King says no. Now Dredd acting as King's sort of bodyguard, Shayna his mullet. The pieces have all moved basically into the same zone as we see Rick Knox in the ring. And so I wanted to shout out the guy at the Squared Circle Reddit. Who I'll see random posts on there, and I've mentioned I follow the business mostly through there, or Meltzer's site, or the Cornet, or Disco and Conan audio stuff on YouTube. But a guy posted a thing on Reddit yesterday. There was an indie wrestling show in Kalkaska, Michigan, where I went to summer camp at a camp called Camp Tanuga for like 4 or 5 years as a little kid. I cannot believe there's indie wrestling, and apparently it was promoted by that guy Danhausen. Now, I have not seen Danhausen work, but I've seen him on the Reddit. I feel like I may have heard at one point he was a Michigan guy, but I went in one ear out the other. Apparently he's like a Detroit guy, which I did not fully comprehend. And so I need to go research him. As a Detroiter, I'm legally obligated to root for him. As we see Ryan Kidd is 1,600 now, getting ready here for the three-way dance. But it got me thinking a lot about growing up, going to the Indies in Detroit when I was like 15, 16, 17, coming off of my radio show before going to work for WCW, and going to shows in like Taylor, Michigan, and Inkster, and Dearborn, and Allen Park, all in the downriver area. In fact, the team from Taylor just won the Little League World Series yesterday. And you would see guys, the shows would be promoted by people like Malcolm Monroe and Gary Warrenchuk. And you would get Sabu and Al Snow and all sorts of Midwest stars. In fact, I once, as a promo thing for my radio show as a teenager, worked a match, the one match I ever worked in the opening of a Malcolm Monroe show. Also on the show, a young Rhino, as I think Terry Reynolds, was what he was working as or something. Great guy, Rhino. Love Rhino to death. Still every now and then we'll shoot him a line. On Facebook or whatever. I did back when I had Facebook. I dumped that at the beginning of the pandemic. I highly recommend dumping it. But love Rhino. Anyway, I want to thank that guy for that post because it really took me down memory lane to like what an awesome era in the indies that was. How formative it was on me in terms of developing my wrestling sensibility as a fan and as a creative. And how it aided me when I went to WCW and ultimately in looking at the shows now and revisiting WRP and the Underground. Huge influences on me, all those shows at high school gyms in the greater downriver area. Outside of having to run into notorious pedophile ML Curley, who thankfully got arrested, who I did not know was a pedophile until Mike today told me. So not that overt a pedo. It's a Jimmy Savile situation for you British listeners. And now back to the action. We don't want to give short shrift to these guys, but I will shout out to that guy on Reddit. Support your local indie wrestling federation, please. And, I do enjoy revisiting this a lot, particularly looking at it through the prism of the 1600 of it all, because, as we talked about in the WRP commentaries, we didn't instruct the audience how to react. I don't really love doing that. I think you get a really canned If you remember, WCW like main event and Saturday Night used to do that at center stage in the really or like Disney. Nice high cross body. We've talked about the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the teenage years thing here with Hayashi. But I don't like inorganic crowd response, and so we they know what they're there for. They know that it's they got to make some atmosphere, but root for who you want to root for, like who you like, let the character that if you're not into somebody, you don't have to be into it. And I do enjoy revisiting this because 1600, who was booked to be 1, 2, 3 kid underdog style deal, certainly did get over. And got the crowd behind him, and when you go back and watch that match with him and Matt Jackson, watching the crowd completely for a minute buy he might win that match, that's all you dream for as a wrestling creative. And so now we see Renee going after Mike Hayashi here. Oh, we have a teenage Tower of Doom, angst-filled Tower of Doom into the roll-up, gonna get him! Oh my God! 1600 wins it! 1600 wins it! Oh my God! 1600 wins it! That is my nod to Bob Uecker in Major League, the greatest sports film ever made. If you take nothing else from this audio commentary, it's know that Cheers is the greatest sitcom of all time, Major League, the greatest sports movie, and support your local independent wrestling promotion. And that really, there are a few things more fulfilling as a wrestling creative than watching characters you create get embraced by an audience. And this was a lot of fun for me. This was fulfilling. And now the classic, should I do it? Should I not do it? Yeah, we're cool. We're cool. It's about family, bro. And so now this alliance reaffirmed. It was on slightly shaky ground. Nice show of sportsmanship. Steamboat-esque, dare I say. Ricky Steamboat, not Vic Steamboat, for all you hardcores. But that a lot of fun to see, and I felt good for Ryan Kidd in this too, because I think he enjoyed. You got to remember, all these guys, SoCal Pro used a lot of these guys because they were smaller, and that was sort of their thing. But otherwise, there were sort of limitations to what you could do. And so it was fun for me to give those guys who were busting their ass in the business a chance to go and live it at a interesting level like this with interesting partners like Awesomeness and Google and YouTube. Because as we've talked about, this was a full initiative ultimately. So now here we go. Worlds about to collide. The Underground and WRP we've talked about in the same universe. That's a very satanic locker room I saw there in the background. Not sure how that. I don't believe we put that there, so I don't want to know what's going on in downtown LA at night. But basically, we're going to see Worlds collide now. The Underground, WRP, they're in the same storytelling universe. Well, the Jobs Luther thing has escalated to the point where we're going to bring in some outside help. And next week, tag team match. And now we're going to see Jobs bringing in his ringer, none other than WRP's Lord of War. And, of course, that is MVP. And here he is, a mercenary for hire, just like his character already established. And it doesn't, a big wad of cash will do the job. And so here we go. And as he said, with that, the Lord of War is going underground. And next week, it'll be Luther and Chase Walker, the now out and proud Chase Walker, played by Joey Ryan, taking on Jobs and the Lord of War, played by MVP, as the full WRP Underground universe collides in staggering fashion. We'll join you then.